Tonight, a wicked weekend of extreme weather as winter unleashes heavy snow and icy winds across North America. From record-breaking cold
that will freeze flesh in a minute or two,
to a postponed NFL playoff game and grounded flights.
Stranded in Winnipeg.
Also concerns the forecast could freeze turnout at the Iowa caucuses. International tensions flare.
I suspect there's going to be additional attacks.
Houthi rebels vow revenge after a second day of U.S. strikes in Yemen. Plus, an auction fit for a queen.
I would love a celebrity to buy it and then have their own revenge dress moment.
The royal replicas up for grabs from the popular series The Crown.
CTV National News with Heather Butts.
Good evening. There is no escaping extreme weather this weekend and the misery it's leaving behind for many. The dangerous conditions taking a toll right across the country. Temperatures plunging in the west, hitting record levels in some provinces. The frigid weather causing travel chaos on the roads and at airports. WestJet said it's so cold in the prairies, de-icing fluid won't work, and the airline canceled more than 150 flights. In southern Alberta, a local state of emergency was declared in the Siksika First Nation as some homes are not heated. Elders and those with children are being put up in hotels. The deep freeze blanketing BC comes with a warning tonight. CTV's Penny Daflos starts us off.
These are the kinds of temperatures and conditions British Columbians rarely face.
We are seeing some very strong outflow winds.
The mercury in Metro Vancouver and the Fraser Valley has been well below zero.
Wind chill values near -30.
And that's leading to medical emergencies.
We're not used to this extreme cold, especially with the wind chill factor that we're getting.
Calls for frostbite and hypothermia have been soaring across the province as temperatures plunge.
Hypothermia and frostbite are both serious medical emergencies, and those are calls that we want to deal with as soon as possible.
At smaller lakes and ponds around the Lower Mainland, the ice is thick enough that people are willing to test it, and even construction sites have become recreational areas. The ice looks thick enough and it might feel thick enough, but the Vancouver Park Board is urging people to stay off of lakes and waterways, and you can see why they have concerns. Across the province, 56 low-temperature records were broken on Friday alone, and warnings continue to blanket BC. It's been so bitterly cold in the north, the wind chill has been hitting 50 below.
A lot of dead battery calls are starting to come in because the cold does affect how effective your battery is.
Roadside assistance calls have doubled, and after thousands of travelers were caught in hours-long delays on the roads during a sudden burst of snow on Thursday, the roads have been much quieter.
If you don't have your proper winter tires on, maybe it'd be best to stay home if you can.
Environment Canada is calling it an entrenched Arctic air mass lasting through Sunday at least. Penny Daflos, CTV News, Vancouver.
People in Ontario through to the Maritimes are expected to feel that deep freeze in the coming days, just as many clear away the aftermath of a powerful storm that brought a punishing combination of snow, rain, and tonight threatening winds. CTV's Tony Grace has more.
The raw power of the wind on full display. Gusts of more than 100 kilometers an hour along Lake Erie today, whipping up dramatic scenes that some couldn't resist capturing, and setting off warnings from southern Ontario to Atlantic Canada, where tonight many communities remain in the bullseye.
It's really windy today, so the waves are getting bigger.
Environment Canada signaling a damaging mix of rain, high wind, and heavy surge in parts of New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland and Labrador, and Quebec.
Storm surges, which could be a lot of erosion around the coastline, very strong winds in Newfoundland.
The kind of wind that also sent waves crashing ashore today just across the border in Maine, one of many states already dealing with unprecedented flooding this week. Across Ontario and Quebec today, the other punishing part of this storm system, digging out from a rain-snow mix.
Yeah, it's wet and heavy snow today.
Both provinces blanketed with snow and whiteout conditions Friday night. before the rain made roads sloppy and helped bring down power lines, with a part 2 of sorts setting in tonight. Lake effect snow bringing more accumulation to many snowbelt communities.
So you got to nip it in the bud and take care of things.
Road crews also rushing to deal with it before an expected deep freeze.
So it's all hands on deck today, and we'll continue to monitor things, and hopefully tomorrow we get a little bit of a break.
The kind of conditions typically felt long before mid-January coming all at once this weekend.
There was no sort of easing into it, no kind of acclimatizing to what the winter was.
Winter weather obstacles have also been a factor in the cancellation of hundreds of flights here at Pearson International Airport, where tonight, as those temperatures drop, officials say crews on the snow clearing and de-icing side will be ready, Heather, for quickly changing conditions.
It's certainly not over yet, Tony. Thank you. Vicious cold played out on the football field today as the NFL playoffs kicked off. Fans covered from head to toe, feeling the frigid minus 27-degree temperatures in Kansas City for the Chiefs game against the Miami Dolphins. Meanwhile, a blizzard threat in Buffalo has postponed another playoff game.
We want our Bills to win, but we don't want 60 to 70,000 people traveling to the football game in what is going to be horrible conditions.
The ongoing weather emergency has forced Sunday's Buffalo Bills game versus Pittsburgh to be moved to Monday instead. A full travel ban is in effect for parts of western New York. It's the frigid final stretch before the Iowa caucuses, the first nominating contest for Republicans in the U.S. presidential race, and the weather is the wild card. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Melvin explains.
Iowa is no stranger to winter weather, but this? People have to travel in person to caucus on Monday night and vote in what's expected to be the coldest caucus night on record.
It's going to be a little bit of a trek. Nobody knows how exactly we're going to get there, but we're going to figure it out.
The frontrunner Donald Trump scrapped most of his campaign events. Despite his legal challenges, polls predict he's coasting to a double-digit win in Iowa. His advisors playing down expectations, worried the weather could scare some voters away. Florida's Governor Ron DeSantis has staked it all on Iowa, traveling to all 99 counties, holding more events, snow or no snow, than the other candidate. And he needs a big win here.
If you're willing to go out there and you're willing to brave the elements on a cold, windy, snowy January night for me and do that for a few hours, I'll fight for you for the next 8 years.
With Trump the favorite, this has become a bitter battle for second place. DeSantis and Nikki Haley taking more swings at each other than at Trump. In this new ad,
"You're fired! You're fired!" Then Mr. Trump said, "You're fired."
Haley hammers DeSantis as a Trump mini-me. She's had a lot of momentum pitching voters that she's the new generation who can beat Joe Biden.
If you will join with me in this movement, if you will caucus for us on Monday, I promise you that our best days are yet to come. Thank you very much. God bless you. I appreciate it.
The big question now, turnout. Who has the most passionate supporters who will brave the dangerous cold? And can any of the candidates catch up to Donald Trump? Heather?
All right, Joy, thanks for this. CTV's Joy Melvin in Washington, where a huge crowd of demonstrators showed up to call for a ceasefire and to protest U.S. aid to Israel. Thousands of pro-Palestinian protesters marched the streets, including a stop at the White House in support of Gaza. This protest was part of a global day of action as the war now reaches the 100-day mark. U.S. forces again targeting the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen for the second straight night. The strikes are in response to the Houthis' targeting of commercial ships in the Red Sea, where tensions are high. Many companies now forced to choose between sailing through the dangerous Red Sea or traveling an expensive extra 10 days around Africa. CTV's Jeremy Charon has more on those now vowing revenge.
An overnight bombardment by American military forces in Yemen. The second attack on Houthi targets in as many days. dozens of strikes were launched, Washington says targeting a radar site.
The second round of strikes was really to follow up on some of the initial targeting.
Just a day ago, the U.S. and the UK launched more than 70 strikes in their first retaliatory attack on the Houthi rebels. At least 5 people were killed. Since November, the rebel group has been persistently attacking ships in the Red Sea.
I suspect that this escalation will continue until such time that the U.S.-led coalition achieves what's referred to as escalation dominance.
The attacks have sparked protests and are raising concerns of escalating tension in the Middle East. The Houthis have vowed fierce retaliation, threatening a strong and effective response. Today, performing military training exercises in Yemen. And the ongoing battle in the Red Sea, a major shipping corridor, is threatening global supply chains.
It is an absolutely vital global trade route.
Roughly 15% of the world's shipping traffic and 30% of container traffic passes through here. The fighting has forced costly route diversions.
Of course, you can always go around the Horn of Africa, and that's what's happening now, but that comes at considerable cost.
Experts are already predicting economic disruptions and price hikes on goods here in Canada if these attacks continue. Heather?
Jeremy, thanks. A victory for the ruling party candidate in Taiwan's presidential election seen as a blow to China. CTV's Colton Prale on what the result could mean for relations with Canada.
An historic reaffirmation of Taiwan's democracy. President-elect Lai Ching-te leading the Democratic People's Party to a third term over opposition parties known to be friendlier to China in an election Beijing painted as a choice between peace and war. President Xi Jinping has called the reunification of the motherland an historical inevitability. Today, the Chinese government releasing a statement saying Taiwan is China's Taiwan.
This will remain a hotspot in 2024. We have not seen the end of China's reaction. They take this personally and deeply. Xi Jinping is weakening at home. The temptation perhaps to go for a dandy foreign war may be going up.
It leaves Canada holding a geopolitical hot potato. The country strengthened economic ties with Taiwan in November, while relations with China remain fraught. This year, Canada faces a new challenge as both Taiwan and China vie for inclusion in the Trans-Pacific Partnership Free Trade Agreement, where Canada acts as chair.
That's a tricky diplomatic task, and certainly Taiwan trade officials have hold out the hope that Canadian diplomats can exercise creativity.
In his victory speech, Lai promised steady relations with China, focusing on dialogue to ease tensions and increasing relations with countries like Canada and the United States to safeguard Taiwan from threats.
Canada doesn't recognize Taiwan as a sovereign state, but says it looks forward to advancing trade and investment ties with Taiwan, something experts say will be done cautiously to avoid outrage from Beijing. Heather.
CTV's Colton Prale in Ottawa. Coming up, the pressures of property tax.
You want to have the services that we see declining. Well, how do you get that?
A possible double-digit hike in Canada's biggest city sparks concerns from coast to coast. Canadian households in 8 select provinces are expecting their first carbon tax rebates as early as Monday. Opposition leader Pierre Poilievre continued his crusade against the federal carbon tax in Northern Ontario.
They've betrayed the people here to sign on to a power pack, a costly coalition with Jagmeet Singh and Justin Trudeau. That will keep Trudeau in power.
The Liberals believe the rebate will leave families in a better position, a heated debate that remains a political battleground. Homeowners in Toronto are bracing for a double-digit property tax hike as the city tries to manage an almost $2 billion shortfall. It's something cities across the country are also facing at a time when many are already grappling with the soaring cost of living. Here's CTV's Heather Wright.
A tough prospect for many homeowners as Toronto weighs a massive property tax increase. City life getting more and more expensive.
We are already paying, as business owners and homeowners, we're already paying a lot of taxes.
Toronto Mayor Olivia Chow has proposed a 10.5% increase in property taxes, which she warns could jump to 16.5% if the feds don't chip in $250 million in refugee support money.
I did not create this financial mess, but it needs to be fixed.
Like many municipalities, the city is struggling with inflation, high interest rates, and crumbling infrastructure. For years, Toronto has kept property taxes at or near the rate of inflation, despite warnings from staff that the city couldn't keep up.
If you want to have the services that we see declining, well, how do you get that? You have to pay for them.
Toronto is not the only major city hiking or keeping tax increases high. In Montreal, property taxes are set to rise nearly 5% this year, the largest hike in 13 years. In Vancouver, property taxes are 7.5%, down from 10.7% last year, while Halifax is set to see a nearly 10% increase.
There is very little sympathy towards homeowners in some of the large cities, such as Toronto and Vancouver, for example, where property taxes are increasing in line with exponential gains in house prices.
If approved, Toronto's property taxes would still be comparatively lower than many other municipalities. And the mayor is hopeful Ottawa will kick in funding to help. Still, some pundits wonder whether Chow's tactics will work.
The mayor is saying, I'm going to put this tax gun to the head of every Toronto taxpayer unless Justin Trudeau takes out his checkbook and strokes us a great big billion-dollar check. I just don't think that's going to work.
Any support from Ottawa for Toronto would have to come by January 26th. Negotiations that we're told are ongoing. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Still ahead, Regal relics. How fans of The Crown can own a piece of the popular series. The Professional Women's Hockey League has captured excitement early in its existence, and today Montreal was the final of 3 Canadian teams to show off the sport in front of a home crowd. The energy was electric even before their game versus Boston, as spectators savored the special moment.
They're going to grow up in a time where there was always women's professional hockey, whereas in my generation there wasn't. So it's really meaningful. I mean, I had to hold back some tears.
Montreal's home debut sold out in minutes with more than 4,000 fans in stands. Just across town, it was the perfect celebration for Connor McDavid, who capped off his 27th birthday with a thrilling record-breaking win. McDavid's Edmonton Oilers edged out the Montreal Canadiens in overtime, pushing the Oilers' consecutive winning streak to a franchise record 10 games. Well, fans of the award-winning royal drama The Crown are getting a chance to view costumes and props before going under the hammer at auction. More than 450 items from the Netflix show are on display. And while they may not be originals, the price tag is certainly real. CTV's Garrett Berry has that story.
It might be the closest that many will ever get to seeing the real thing. And for an estimated £40,000, about $70,000, this royal gold state coach reproduction can be yours.
I mean, actually sitting in it, God, I love this. It's so comfortable.
Specifically designed for hit TV series The Crown, it's actually a working stagecoach, a sign of how far producers went to make their show feel like reality.
And if you happen to have 6 horses, you can strap them to it and head down the mount. I mean, it is a working coach. It was built especially for the show. I cannot find any other reproduction coronation state coach anywhere in the world. So I think this is pretty unique.
There's also replica dresses, the replica door for 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister's residence. Even the replica throne is here. More than 450 items are going on auction next month. The sales of those big-ticket items will help fund scholarships for the UK's National Film and Television School.
We've talked about a figure of £1 million. If that got raised, we'd be able to support about 100 students to come to the NFTS over the next 20 years.
One big-ticket item that auctioneers estimate will cost about 16,000 Canadian dollars, a replica version of Princess Diana's revenge dress. Featured on the show and based on what the princess wore in 1994, the same week the world learned about the eventual king's affair with Camilla.
I mean, I would love a celebrity to buy it and then have their own revenge dress moment.
The live auction runs on February 7th. Until then, starting this weekend, the public can view these items free of charge. Garrett Berry, CTV News, St. John's.
A different kind of throne is helping to break barriers. After the break, finding dignity in the discarded.